right, in our next section, 1-3, we're going to talk about midpoint and distance. And in order to really understand all of this stuff on midpoint and bisectors and things, we've kind of got to get to the root and make sure, first of all, we understand what is a midpoint. So let's make a little picture of a line segment, and I'm going to call it a B. The midpoint is going to fall mid between A and B, or in the middle of A and B. Well, you might be kind of saying, well, okay, yeah, it's in the middle. Like, why do I need to know that? Well, in geometry, it really helps us to understand, especially if something is in the middle. I know it chops these two in half, meaning that this is the same as this. So I could say that AM, line segment AM, is congruent to BM. Those two are equal. They are the same, which will help us out with some of the algebra pieces that we do in this section. The next piece is really similar. It's called a segment bisector. Sorry about that. And a segment bisector is, again, taking a segment, and this time I'll call it CD, and it's going to chop it in half. And a segment bisector could be a point, like right here. It could be a midpoint. It could be another line segment that chopped it in half. It could be a ray, or it could be a line. Essentially, it doesn't really matter what it is, because if we call it a bisector, if it's bisecting this segment, it means that these two are the same, which again is going to really help us to know. If I know that these two pieces are the same, it's going to help us with some of our other pieces that we're going to do. So let me show you an example of what they're talking about. So again, let's say I have a segment. This time I'll call it, why would I say M? That's a bad idea, right? How about W? Make that a W and a Z, okay? So this is line segment WZ. And if I tell you that this is the midpoint, and I say that this is 5 centimeters, what would I be able to figure out from there? Well, if I tell you that this is a midpoint, remember that means that these two are the same, because the midpoint chops this segment in half. If this is equal to this, and I already know that this is 5, well, then I'm going to know that this is 5. I also am going to know, so sometimes they're going to ask you, so let's say in this one they would have said, what is WM? I wanted to know that. And we, of course, know that it's 5 centimeters. Sometimes, though, the book is going to say, what about WZ? What about that one? And WZ is the whole piece. Well, again, if I know one of the little pieces, I can figure out both of them, and essentially I can add them together. So it'll depend on what they want. Sometimes they will go, so let's look at one other example for that. And let's call this DE. And this time I am using a segment bisector. So I know that these two are the same. And this time I'm going to tell you that segment DE is equal to 15 feet. If I know that DE is equal to 15 feet, so that means the whole thing is equal to 15 feet, what is that going to tell me about these two pieces? Well, again, they have to be the same. It's bisecting it, so it's chopping it in half. So I'd have to take 15 divided by 2. I'd have to chop it in half, and I would get 7.5. So if I want to know this side, or if I want to know this side, I know that they're the same. The next example that I want to show you is very similar to what we just did, but it really brings that algebra piece into play. Again, I have a line segment. I have a midpoint, which means it chops these two in half. So these two I know are going to be equal. Well, much like the last example, if I know what this side is and I know what this side is, I know that they're the same. So I can say that 4x minus 1 is the same as 3x plus 3. Well, brings in a little more algebra. This is something that we worked on last year a lot. If you had PEG or if you had Algebra 1, it's something that we worked on a lot. So these are some things that we're going to practice. In my classes, we use highlighters a lot, especially when variables are on both sides, because we want to get those variables together. So I want to take, and I'm going to move that 3x to the other side, and 4x minus 3x is just 1x. And, whoops, I keep grabbing the wrong marker. And now I can do my last step here. This is a minus 1, so I'll plus 1, and x is equal to 4. Now it depends on what they ask. If they just want x, I'm done. Like I've got 4. If though they want what these segments are, I can go back and put 4 in. So for instance, 3 times 4 plus 3. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Let's double check the other side. If I put 4 in here, 4 times 4 is 16, minus 1 is 15. I can see that they are equal, they're the same. Maybe they ask, what's VW? So then I would have to know what these are together, and I'd have to add them together. So we just really have to pay attention to what they're asking for.